Okay guys, go ahead and open up your English notebook to the first clean page. Make sure you're in your English notebook. You may use the back if you need to. And then today's lesson is called, so the title of today's lesson is Pronouns and Antecedents. Remember, we underline titles. Even if it's of notes, we go ahead and underline it. And then don't forget about the date. Now, the first thing that we need to know is what a pronoun is. So, a pronoun is a word that takes the place of one or more nouns. Notice the word pronoun has the word noun in it because a pronoun is a word that takes the place of one or more nouns. Then we have an antecedent. Oops, I'm sorry, I spelled that wrong 2 times. So, erase that A, oops, and make it an E right there, and then in the title. Sorry about that. Antecedents, not antecedents. So an antecedent is the noun or nouns that the pronoun replaces. So the pronoun is a word that takes the place of the antecedent, and the antecedent is the noun or nouns that the pronoun replaces. So, for example, if I had the sentence, Mrs. LaRue was angry. I have no pronouns in this sentence. Mrs. LaRue was angry, but Mrs. LaRue will become the antecedent, so let's label that. And we will change that antecedent to a pronoun. So instead of saying Mrs. LaRue was angry, we will say she was angry. And she is the pronoun. Go ahead and label that. So we changed Mrs. LaRue was angry to the sentence she was angry because we changed the antecedent Mrs. LaRue to the pronoun she. So now we're going to learn a little more about pronouns. Pronouns, just like regular nouns, can be singular or plural. Singular pronouns replace singular nouns. So if you have a singular noun, you can only replace it with a singular pronoun. Singular pronouns are I. So some examples of singular pronouns are I, you, she, he, and it. So I, you, she, he, it, me, her, and him. These are examples of singular pronouns. They are only talking about one noun. So, for example, we could say, The cat is on the fire escape. And so if we use the cat as the antecedent, go ahead and always label if I am. So if we said the cat is the antecedent, the cat is talking about one cat. So we are going to replace it with a singular pronoun. Now let's pretend that this cat is a boy. We could either use it or we could use he. I'm going to go ahead and use he because we know he's a boy. He is on the fire escape. Oops. And so we replace the antecedent, the cat, with the pronoun he. Now animals, we could use it instead of she or he. But people, we can only use she or he or her or him. We cannot use it. Okay, and let's see. Now, plural pronouns. If you guessed, I'm going to say they replace plural nouns. You are correct, but there's just one more thing that they can replace. Plural pronouns replace plural nouns or groups of nouns. So you can actually replace a group of singular pronouns, like if you have, I'll show you in the examples, with a plural noun. So plural nouns include we, you. Now you I said was singular, but that's because I could be talking about you as in one person, or I could be talking about you as in the whole class. So it could be singular or plural. You just have to look at the rest of the sentence to figure out which one it is. So we, you, they, us, and them. All of these mean more than one thing. So I'm going to have two examples. The first example is the cats are on the fire escape. Now we have the cats as our antecedent, so we want to replace it with a pronoun. Well, the cats is plural, it's referring to more than one cat, so that means I have to use one of these plural pronouns. They are on the fire escape. Now, I could also replace a group of singular pronouns. So another example is, I have to kind of bend down. The cat, the dog, and I are on the fire escape. And I want to use the cat, the dog, and I as the antecedent. Now I have one cat, the cat, one dog, and then me, one person. Those are all singular, but since I'm using all of these, the cat, the dog, and I'm talking about more than one. So that means I have to use a plural pronoun. I can't use they because I have I, so I have to use we are on the fire escape. And we is the pronoun. This is when you would use each of these pronouns. I, when you're only talking about yourself. You, can be used either when you're talking about one person directly or multiple people directly. She and he would be when you're talking about either one girl or one boy. It would be about one object. Me is again yourself. Her and him would be for one boy or one girl. We is plural when you're talking about yourself and more people. You, we already talked about when it's plural. They is when you're talking about a group of objects, or people too. Us is when you're talking again about yourself and some other people together. And then them again is when you're talking about a group of objects or people. And we will talk about how to use I, you, she, he, and it versus me, her, and him. And we, you, they, we, you, and they versus us and them. I think in Thursday's lesson. Okay, so we just learned a little more about pronouns. Now I just want to say one thing about antecedents. And this is very important because it helps to be clear. So, antecedents often appear in the same sentence as the pronoun, or they appear in an earlier sentence. And the reason for that is clarity. You can't just come out using a pronoun because then nobody's going to know who or what you're talking about. If you just come out saying she was angry, how do we know who? So, what this means, for example, I'm going to show you an example of each problem. Mrs. LaRue was so angry that she sent her dog to obedience school. So we have one sentence where we have an antecedent and a pronoun for that antecedent. Because we don't want to use Mrs. LaRue twice, because listen to this. Mrs. LaRue was so angry that Mrs. LaRue sent her dog to obedience school. Or no, really, we have two, actually. To mean these all are talking about Mrs. LaRue. If we did not have these pronouns, this sentence would sound like this. Mrs. LaRue was so angry that Mrs. LaRue sent Mrs. LaRue's dog to obedience school. And that would just sound silly. If we only use pronouns, we have she was so angry that she sent her dog to obedience school. Well, then we wouldn't know who we were talking about. So that's why we have to make sure that our antecedent is in the same sentence as our pronouns, as in this sentence, or it comes in an earlier sentence, like this example. Mrs. LaRue was angry at her dog. And then we have a period. So there's our first sentence. Mrs. LaRue was angry at her dog. She sent him to obedience school. So even though Mrs. LaRue, which is the antecedent, Mrs. LaRue is the antecedent for she. And her dog is the antecedent for him. And even though they are in two different sentences, they come close enough that we know when we say she, we're talking about Mrs. LaRue, and when we say him, we're talking about her dog. Okay guys, go ahead. We're going to do the guided practice together. So open up your Tuesday packet, go past the Phantom Tollbooth homework, and look at the first page of the guided practice. It says page 97 down in the bottom corner. We're going to do this together. Make sure that you're actually doing it with me. I know you have been, but keep doing it with me because practicing will help you to remember. So before we start, let's go ahead and read the bullet points at the top. I don't have them up here, but you have them on your sheet, so follow along as I read out loud. A pronoun is a word that takes the place of one or more nouns. Well, we have that in your notes, which you can have out in order to help you with this work. A pronoun must match the noun it refers to. So that means singular pronouns go with singular nouns, plural pronouns go with plural nouns or groups of nouns. The singular pronouns are I, you, he, she, it, me, him, and her. And plural pronouns are we, you, they, us, and them. Now what we're going to do is you are going to underline the incorrect pronoun in each sentence and then write the correct pronoun on the line next to it. So number one, let's look at number one. It says, there was no apple cake left because the dog ate them. Well, I know that them is incorrect. We have no plural nouns in this sentence, so we can't have a plural pronoun. We know that the dog is talking about the apple cake, because that's the only thing it could have eaten in this sentence. Apple cake is one thing. It is not me. It is not you. It is not a girl or a boy. So we have to use the pronoun it. We're going to read the sentence together with our new pronoun to make sure it makes sense, because remember, we always read what we've written to make sure it makes sense. So, there was no apple cake left because the dog ate it. That makes sense. Let's move on to number two. Mrs. Hibbins says her cats are angels, but he are not. Well, we know that word he does not sound right. So now we have to figure out, is this pronoun replacing Mrs. Hibbins, or her cats, or angels? Well, we know it's not Mrs. Hibbins because Mrs. Hibbins, we don't have a description for her, so we can't say, but she is not. We do have cats, which are described as angels, so we know this pronoun is referring to cats. Cats are more than one object or animal. So we have to say, Mrs. Hibbins says her cats are angels, but they are not. Our options would be either they or them, but them are not does not sound right. So we know it's they. Number three, why doesn't he send her own dog to obedience school? Well, we know he and her can't go together because he refers to a boy and her refers to a girl. So we can't talk about one person as both he and her. So we have to pick one. We're probably talking about Mrs. Hibbins because usually these sentences kind of go together. So we know that he is the incorrect pronoun. So now, instead of saying he, we have to use the pronoun that means a girl. We know, why doesn't she send her own dog to obedience school? Makes sense. Number four, ask the dogs to please be quiet because he am trying to sleep. He does not sound correct. We know that we're not talking about the dogs because if the dogs are being loud, they're not trying to sleep. Also, this verb am gives us a hint. We know the only time that we use am is when it comes after I. So the sentence has to say, ask the dogs to please be quiet because I am trying to sleep. Now number five, I feel sick and I don't know what's wrong with I. Well, we know I does not sound right. Sounds weird. We're talking about me, so that means I have to either use I or me. I doesn't make sense, so that means it has to be me. I feel sick and I don't know what's wrong with me. That sounds right. Number 6. My brother and I hope that us can get a dog. Us doesn't sound right. We know that us means me and someone else, and the only other pronoun that means me and somebody else is we. It's not us, so that means it has to be we. My brother and I hope that we can get a dog. Now number 7. When Mrs. LaRue throws the ball, the dog will fetch it for she. She doesn't sound quite right. But we know we're talking about Mrs. LaRue, so that means we need to use a different form of she. Well, the only other form of she is her. When Mrs. LaRue throws the ball, the dog will fetch it for her. Number 8. Ike said that him wanted to come home. Him sounds wrong. Ike is a boy because we've been talking about a boy, and Ike is usually a boy name. So instead of saying him, we need to use the other form that means a dog. So we would say Ike said that he wanted to come home. Now number 9, Mrs. LaRue said that her would throw a party for Ike. Again, we've got that random her, so we have to use the other form because we are talking about Mrs. LaRue, who is a woman. So that means we need to replace her with she, so that the sentence says, Mrs. LaRue said that she would throw a party for Ike. Now number 10, when Mrs. LaRue and Ike were together again, them were very happy. Them sounds off, but we are talking about more than one, a person and a dog. We can't use a boy or a girl version because it's a boy and a girl, and there is no boy or girl version that means more than one girl or more than one boy. So the only other option is they. When Mrs. LaRue and Ike were together again, they were very happy. Now number 11, there were enough cupcakes for all of we. We doesn't sound right. We know that we're talking about, we could say, there's multiple options that we could use here. We could use us or them. Both of them would make sense. There were enough cupcakes for all of us. There were enough cupcakes for all of them. We're going to try to replace it with the same version of the pronoun. We means I and a bunch of other people. Us also means me and a bunch of people. So let's replace we with us. There were enough cupcakes for all of us. That makes sense, so we know that is what works. Number 12, Sue asked me to give the ball to she. She doesn't sound right. We know that we're talking about a girl, one girl, so we have to use the other pronoun that means one girl, which is her. Oops. Sue asked me to give the ball to her. Okay, so we're done with that side, so go ahead and flip the page and look at the next page of the guided practice. It says page 99 at the bottom, on the bottom corner. Let's go ahead and read the bullet points, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do on this side. It says, again, a pronoun is a word that takes the place of one or more nouns. A pronoun must match the noun it refers to, singular, plural. Singular pronouns are I, you, he, she, it, me, him, and her. The pronoun I must always be capitalized. We talked about that with proper nouns, but there is another clue or another review of that. I is always capitalized, and plural pronouns are we, you, they, us, and them. So what we're going to do on this side is we are going to write the pronoun that correctly completes each sentence. So this is a little different. You have to read the sentence. We have no antecedent here. You have to figure out what the pronoun is based on the rest of the sentence. So number 1 says, I said, blank think I must take my cat to the vet. Well, we know that I am the one saying it, so that means we have to say, I think I must take my cat to the vet. Because we wouldn't say, She think I must take my cat to the vet. I am saying it. I have to take my cat to the vet. So I think that I have to do it. Number 2, I took the leash because I would need blank to hold the dog. Ignore what I said about antecedents. I was speaking too fast. We do have some antecedents. So we have to figure out which one it is. So actually what we're going to do, I'm going to add a direction. We're going to do it together. We're going to underline the antecedent that we are using a pronoun for in the blank. So I took the leash because I would need blank to hold the dog. Well, we know that we're talking about the leash. The leash is singular, it's an object, it can't be a boy or a girl, so we need to use it. I took the leash because I would need it to hold the dog. Number 3, I'm brushing my dog Trixie's coat because blank will be in a show tomorrow. Well, it's not going to be I that's in it. I'm not going to be in the show. Her coat isn't going to be in the show, but Trixie will be in the show. Trixie, is one animal, and Trixie is usually a girl's name. So that means we would use the pronoun she. I am brushing my dog Trixie's coat because she will be in a show tomorrow. We could use it, but usually if we know that the animal is a boy or a girl, we're going to use she or he instead of it. It just sounds more proper. Number 4, my dog Edward needs medicine. I give it to blank every morning. Well, I'm not giving myself medicine, and I'm not giving the medicine. So that means our antecedent is my dog Edward. Edward is a boy's name, and there's only one of them, so we are going to use him. We would use he or him, but I give it to he every morning. Doesn't sound right, so it has to be him. Number 5, Janice's brother gave blank a picture of their dog Buddy. Well, let's look at it. Janice's brother is not going to give the picture to himself, and he's not going to give the picture to the dog, so we know we're talking about Janice. Janice's brother gave, Janice is a girl's name, there's only one Janice, so we have to use she or her. Let's see, Janice's brother gave she a picture of their dog Buddy, or Janice's brother gave her a picture of their dog Buddy. Her sounds right, so that's the pronoun we're going to use. Number 6, Fido buried his bone in the yard, but now he can't find blank. Well, Fido's not trying to find himself. Fido's not trying to find the yard, so we know his bone is the antecedent. There's only one bone. A bone is not a girl or a boy, so that means we have to use it. Fido buried his bone in the yard, but now he can't find it. Number 7, my sister and blank threw the stick and our dog brought it back to us. Well, we're not saying my sister and herself, or my sister threw the stick. We're not talking about my sister and the dog throwing the stick. We also see our and us, which means I am included in that. So it has to be my sister and I or me, my sister and me threw the stick. Doesn't actually sound right. You might think it does, but we're going to talk about either on Thursday or next Tuesday about why that is not correct. So it has to be my sister and I threw the stick, and our dog brought it back to us. Number 8, Fran's mother told us that blank had a cat when she was little. Well, we're probably not talking about Fran having a cat when she was little. We're not talking about us having a cat when she was little. We're not talking about the cat having a cat when she was little. So we must be talking about Fran's mother. There's only one mother. Mothers are girls. So that means we have to use she or her. Let's test it. Fran's mother told us that she had a cat when she was little. Fran's mother told us that her had a cat when she was little. She works best. Number 9, my cousins called and blank told me their cat had just had kittens. Well, my cousins aren't going to call and tell me that my cat just had kittens. My cousins aren't going to call me and tell me that my cat's cat just had kittens. And my cousins aren't going to call me and tell me that the kittens had kittens. So, my cousins are calling and saying that either they or them. My cousins called and they told me their cat just had kittens, or my cousins called and them told me that their cat just had kittens. Well, they works best because we are talking about a group of cousins. We don't know if they're boys or girls, so we use they. Number 10. My little brother wanted to feed the dog, so blank showed him how to do it. Well, my little brother's not going to show himself how to feed the dog, and the dog's not going to show my little brother how to do it. So that means it has to be I or me. My little brother wanted to feed the dog, so me showed him how to do it. Or my little brother wanted to feed the dog, so I showed him how to do it. I works best, so that's what we're going to put. Now we're done with the guided practice, so use this to help, and then turn over to the independent practice. There are 2 sides that you will do on your own. On the front, what you're going to do, there's 2 parts. On the first part, you're just going to circle the pronoun in each sentence. So you need to find the pronoun. You have a list in your notes, so make sure you use that. Read through the top just to give yourself a hint. And then at the bottom, you are going to replace the antecedent that is underlined with the pronoun that works. So they've got the antecedent underlined. You replace it with the pronoun that goes with it. So make sure, is it singular, is it plural? Would we use I or me? Would we use you, they, it, she, whatever. On the back, again, you're going to do like what you did at the bottom of the previous page. The antecedent is underlined. You replace it with the correct pronoun. So you need to check, is that antecedent singular or plural? Is it me? Is it me in a group? Is it you as in just one person, or you as in a group of people? Is it a boy? Is it a girl? Is it an object that is not a boy or a girl? Is it an animal that you don't know if it's a boy or a girl? Is it a group of objects or a plural noun? That's what you need to figure out. Always reread your sentence after you choose the pronoun to make sure it makes sense. Okay, if you have any questions about anything we talked about in English today, either FaceTime me or Skype me or text me or whatever between 1 and 5 today, and I'll help you out.